If you still manually send invite requests to prospects on LinkedIn, then you're definitely missing out on this. I've automated every type of outreach that you can think of, from emails to cold calls and now LinkedIn invite requests. So today I'll show you the exact system that finds, enriches, and personalizes invites to prospects using Appify, GPTs, and Phantom Buster inside an n8n automation. I'll first show you a demo and then walk through the automation so that by the end you can access the templates that I've made available to you for free in the link in the description. So let's get into it. Okay, so here we are in our automation within n8n, or the first part of the automation. What we're going to do now is click on this form submission node to test the workflow, and this is going to open up a form where we can fill in the exact people that we are targeting for our campaign. In this case, we're going to be looking for founders. We can say something like New Zealand, which is where I'm from. Then industry can be insurance. And then the parameter of this can be, we'll say 10 to 150 to keep it relatively small. The keywords that we'll target is life insurance. And then for keywords to exclude, we are just going to leave this as blank for now. But notice how I can submit this from this point, and then that will trigger automation on this side. We are then creating an Apollo URL, which is then going to be scraped by Appify. Now this takes a couple minutes, but once it's done, we're then going to personalize that message and then send it into Phantom Buster to send the personalized requests. So as you can see, we have filtered the employment history. We are looping over all the items with a personalized line, adding them to a Google Sheet, which we are now going to send our request with. We have now sent over the request, and we have got a container ID, which then leads us to this following automation. We are then going to test the workflow here, which is where we're going to be getting all of our responses. Now, while this is loading and the whole automation is running, as you can see here, we have a running confirmed. You can see here by a successful authentication. We are now going to wait for the result of this to be appended to this URL, which is then going to be updated in this Google Sheet here. So if you can see, we've got the contacts of a whole bunch of people that match the criteria that we've just described. And then when the invites are officially sent, we get this data as updated into the Google Sheet over here. And as you can see, once the webhook is triggered, this automation runs and it looks a little bit like this, which means that if we go back into our Google Sheet, our results are added in, not just with the icebreaker and the other contact details that we've triggered before, but also with a confirmation message saying that the invite has been sent and the Phantom Buster automation has been successful. Okay, so now getting into the meat of the video, how can you actually set this up so it works for yourself? Well, we're not actually going to start at this workflow at all. The first thing that we're going to do is set up a Google Sheet, which is going to be a database to hone in all the information that we gather. We're going to have all these fields mapped out exactly as it is. I'll have this for you to copy down in the description below along with the resources. But essentially, we're connecting this, and once you've done so, you can go to Phantom Buster, right? So what Phantom Buster is it is a bot that we're going to be connecting our LinkedIn account to then mimic our interaction with the LinkedIn app so that we can use it to send requests on autopilot. So what you want to do is in this dashboard here, this will be the first sort of view that you have once you make an account. And the first thing that you need to do is click Browse Phantoms. Once you've done that, then you click onto the LinkedIn options over here. And the phantom that we are going to use is all the way down here, and we scroll to LinkedIn Auto Connect. We can click Use Now, and now that we've done this, we can attach a database to it. You can see that we have a list, a URL, or a spreadsheet. We're going to use a spreadsheet one, and we are going to paste in this URL here into the field asking for the database. So if we paste that, and just make sure that this is publicly available, you can do so by clicking that share and toggling the option over there. By doing so, we can give access to our Phantom to access the fields and then make sure that it understands the exact fields that it needs to use for the LinkedIn URL, which at this case, in this field here, we're just going to toggle the field called LinkedIn URL. And we would like to click all of these because we'd like all of this in a response message at the very end. And once we click save, we then go into the next stage, which is actually connecting our LinkedIn account. So there's two ways that you can do this. You can do this manually by adding in a user agent and then a session cookie over here, which is the manual way to do it. And then the other way that you can do this is by downloading the Phantom Buster extension. You can see that I've got it here. And by downloading this extension, you can automatically connect your account to it, and then it'll know what user to actually access to then send out these requests. Once we've done that, we click save. we get into this page here, which is going to give us the options for the actual message that we are going to send. Now, if you remember, we generate an icebreaker, which, as you can see, they're hyper-personalized to the employment history. So making a comment on their employment history and then connecting it at the end to something about us. So that is how we make our very personalized message using automation. In order to reference this entire field here, what we need to do is come into this field, click this plus button here, and then icebreaker will be an option over here that you can click. And the value of this when we actually send our invitation request will be exactly that, the messages that we generate prior using AI to help us. We can then click save on that. The email discovery service can just be none for now. The behavior is going to be the max amount of invitations that you send per launch. For this exact test, I did 3, obviously, because I didn't want to send too many requests. But you can go ahead and set this to 10 for any other campaigns that you use for yourself. And then just make sure you use the simulate LinkedIn dwell time just to enhance kind of the mimicking of you, like going to people's profiles and sending invitation requests, because that is how the bot will end up behaving using your browser cookie. Now in this page, we can leave everything as it is. We're going to be using this automatically, so we don't have to click any of these buttons. What we do have to do is go into this advanced settings here, which will give us all of these buttons to click here. We're going to click webhooks. And in custom webhooks, we're just going to paste in the exact webhook URL that we get over here in our test workflow. The webhook URL that I want is this one over here, which we can copy and then paste in that. And what that is going to do is it's going to send success messages or outputs of the Phantom once it's completed and finished running for all of the people that we have in our database, in this case the Google Sheets, so that then we can take that information and do something with it, which is exactly what we do in this part of the automation here. So every time that something comes in, we make sure that we get a success message. If we do, then we pass that information and then we update it as a successful message. So by doing that, we can click save, and then that's all you need to do. You can name it whatever you want, but essentially your Phantom is configured. Just a quick one from me if you're enjoying the video so far. Obviously, this automation that I'm showing you in this video is specified to only my particular use case. So if you are a business owner looking for a more complex version of this that adheres to your use case instead, then you can contact me directly using the booking link in the description. Now back to the video. So coming back into the workflow here, you can see that after the form submission, we have a make URL model here, which is going to take in our requirements and create an Apollo URL, which is a database scraper full of lead information, which we are then going to feed into Appify. If you don't know Appify, it is a marketplace for scrapers, which we are going to use to scrape Apollo. So the reason why that is because Apollo is far too expensive to extract automatically, and having an account, all of that is just not worth it when you can just pay this instead and have a designated scraper to scrape the page, take the information out, and then feed it into your database without having any excessive cost. You can see here that I pay $1.20 per 1,000 leads that come in. So this is a huge win. And what we're going to do here in this OpenAI node is we are going to feed in a system prompt saying that you are a helpful sales agent using the 4.1 model. And then I said that the job is to receive a form submission from the user containing all of particular information, and then just mentioning that it should expect the job title, location, and all the parameters that I kind of had going on in the example that I just showed you. We then feed it an example of a real life Apollo URL that toggles every single sort of option available in the URL, and by doing so we are teaching this LLM to process the parameters and then recreate one using the requirements that we feed into it instead. So then we feed an actual example using a prompt and then an assistant message to actually tell it what it should look like. So in reality, we give it 2 examples, one up here and then another one down here. And then we finalize it with the user message using the real life data, which you can see here from our test that we just did is the what comes out as the output. And then as a result of that, we get this URL here, which is then fed into this Appify scraper via an HTTP request. So this is the exact request that I used. So we are using this endpoint here to run and get the dataset ID items. With authorization, we can then input a body with the clean output, the total records that we need. So for this example, I had 500 for this scraper, which is the minimum. The URL that we are feeding it is the dynamic value of the LLM URL that we have fed to the AI. and then we have this file name here as Apollo Prospects. Now, once we've done that, this automatically runs, and you can see here, if I click on runs, it'll show me that I've made a run today, and it gave me 102 results for the requirements that I put in. Obviously, I put in New Zealand, so the scope is much smaller. But when you use this and then you don't set a specific limit on your request body, then we can have potentially thousands and thousands of leads being scraped in real time so that you can then distribute to your LinkedIn outreaches. And upon this successful run, we are then limiting it in this very case for testing, but also for the LinkedIn outreaches, we don't want thousands and thousands of outreaches per week because that'll get us caught and then have our account banned. So essentially what you want is to have a set limit that just as a fail safe, we do have launch limits on Phantom Bus that we have just configured, but we can maybe add in here a separate Google Sheet that is going to store everything else that isn't used for the actual launch. Anyway, I have this limit here for 3 items, which is what we used in our example, which is followed by filter employment history. The reason why I did that is because just so you can see the amount of data that we get from the LinkedIn is actually insane. So obviously this is 102 items that we have from Appify. Once we limit that, I want to isolate the specific employment history that we have for each user, which we are then going to make as a personalized line, just to give them the idea that we have actually looked at their profile and seen who they are and what kind of experience they've come from, so that when we send our request automatically, we have a very warm approach of doing it, rather than just being cold and automatic and then kind of just saying, I found you on Apollo, so might as well give you an invitation request. So that's what we're doing over here using this code node. You have access to this as well once you download and import the blueprint. But essentially this is isolating, giving us kind of one item per person to then feed into the LLM. So just as an example here, we have this person who originally had all of this data for us to process into the AI. But instead what we've done is we've put that into a much more structured item for the AI to understand. And this may not make sense to you, but what we need to do is make sure that we are feeding one item to the AI at a time. Otherwise, it's going to take in all of the information that we've just gotten. So in this case, 3 items, and then make one personalized line instead of 3, because it won't know the difference between the 3 people that we're trying to contact. So that's what this code node is for. And then once we have this 3 items created for the employment history to be accessed by the AI, we can then loop over them so that only one is sent individually into this AI step here. What we're doing again was we're using the 4.1 mini this time. We are sending a system prompt saying that you're an intelligent and helpful copywriting assistant. In the user message, we have this prompt here saying, write a 1-line icebreaker customized introduction for a cold LinkedIn campaign. We are telling it to use the provided data about their employment history from Google search as context. The guidelines that we are giving it is that the tone of voice should be casual, like a bar conversation, and very Spartan. And then to say, look for plausible but vague connections about me wherever you see resemblance. So down here, I have some information about me that it can use as context to then pinpoint, kind of a connection point and make this an even warmer approach when we do send the LinkedIn invite. Number 3 here, we have a respond with JSON only, no exclamation points, no question, and don't be overly excited. Here we say to always start with, hey, first name, and then just some more guide rails in terms of how we want the outreach to be made. So kind of always start with love that or love how, to kind of just be way more casual instead of almost robotic. So these are just guidelines for it to know what to say at certain specific times that I kind of just gotten over experience of running this thing. And here we finally have the connection points about me. So I think entrepreneurship is about grit more than anything. You can see that it uses that quite a lot in the messages. So in this example, hey Amber, I love that you've been running Wise Choice for a while now alongside your role at NIB. Got a bit of that same grit from early entrepreneurship myself. So that's one that the AI usually likes to use because it's a very easy touch point to use, and it's the one that people don't really make. In this last user message here, again, we give it the live data that is fed in from the looped over items. We have the name of the person that we are reaching out to, and then a stringified version of the employment history. So remember before I said we want the specific lists as opposed to big chunks of items for the AI to go through. Well, this is a stringified version that is just going to have all of the employment history and all of the details in one long line, as opposed to an unstructured way that the AI cannot actually access. So once we've looped over these items, we can finally update them all at once to Google Sheets. And remember, we don't actually have to reference anything from this Google Sheet to the request that we sent on Phantom Buster because they're already connected through Phantom Buster itself, which saves us a lot of the hassle and the actual configuration between these two. So once we've done that, just mapping all of the columns that we've got from past successfully ran nodes, we can then map all of this, and then you can see like some of the preview information that we've got. And then finally here, we make a request to Phantom Buster, which if you go to the documentation, the way you get the API key is by clicking on your profile. I am using my business partner's profile on this instead of mine, but then we click API keys from there, and then we can see the API keys that we've made. And then in terms of the documentation, we can click resources and then developers here to check out the API documentation. And then you can see what we actually need to run this agent on n8n. If we go here and we click to API, and then from here we go into API reference, we can then see what exactly we need to run. You need to go down here into agents, and then this example tells us that we need an X phantom key header. This is the base URL that we are using. And then we need to reference the specific agent ID, which in this case, if we come over here, it's just in the URL search here. So next to phantoms / we have this number here. This is going to be your designated Phantom Buster ID, which you are going to reference over here in your request. So coming down here, we got the agent ID. From experience, if you don't have these next configurations set up, the automation will not work. So what you need to do here is in the request body, once you also reference the agent ID, we then have the output as nothing, max instance count as 1. From the options here, you want to toggle redirects and then make sure that that is toggled to false. The reason why that is because Phantom Buster has a very rigid API request per minute. And once we make one request to this agent, we then automatically follow a redirect, which is technically considered as another API request. And by doing so, we have 2 requests within 1 minute, which automatically shuts down the API request, and we automatically get an error. So you can see here, even after doing this myself, I still got a 429. The reason we don't get an error in our automation is because you then need to go to settings, and then on error, we just need to make sure to continue. These are very crucial because otherwise, every time you run this, you will get the Phantom Buster ran, but you will not get the confirmation and the container ID down here to clarify that the Phantom Buster has actually. So this is very crucial at this very last step of the automation. If you don't do this, then the automation will not work. But once you have, then you're pretty much ready to go. Since you've already set up the webhook in your Phantom Buster account, we then receive the data, and this data is a whole bunch of information that we don't need, except for down here we have a result object, which is a stringified JSON. So what we do here, if the result on the exit message is not finished, so in this request body we have an exit message, and if that does not equal to finished, we then go into a kind of error route here. But if it is finished, then we pass the object. So this node here takes in that whole string that is not in a schema format for us to map, and it is passing that information and turning it into, as you can see over here, a schema that we can then map and reference further down the track, which in this case really is just a Google Sheet node here for us to then look at and update accordingly. What we're doing over here is we're looking for the exact match between the LinkedIn URLs, because that is the identifier between each of the leads they are passing through in that Google Sheet. Once we've identified it using the mapping of the URL of the LinkedIn here, we then know which row to map, which we can then update all of the information accordingly, including a static message at the end, so yes here, to say that the automation has been a success and our campaign is finished. So by downloading these workflows and integrating them into your account, you won't have anywhere near the amount of issues that I had while making this build. But it's still important for you to understand these configurations so that you can tweak your workflow specifically to your use case and what you need this automation to do, so that you can actually become a better builder yourself by doing so. So that's it for the video today. As mentioned before, everything has been templated for you to use by downloading using the link in the description. My name is Kai, and I have an AI agency called Blue Horizon AI, where we help business owners scale their operations using AI solutions like these. So if you're a business owner looking to get in touch with us, then you can do so using the booking link right in the description. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.